Hello, this next story is rather black. Perhaps it should come with a health warning, something like that. But it is only about 17 minutes long, quite short and to the point, and perhaps you may find something interesting or entertaining in it. See what you make of it anyway.
Have you ever stood near to the edge of a cliff, but hesitated to stand too close to the precipice, not from fear of losing your footing, but because you cannot trust yourself? You have stood 3 steps back, perhaps a metre, fearful of your own resolution. You stand there and imagine what you might do, rash from some unseen prompt. The moment of the step is there with you, the irrevocable act, and the sudden plunge as the body follows in a rush beyond the edge. The unexpected view of the ground beneath, the vertical cliff now at your feet, the wind like a gale about your ears, desperate in its resistance to your final act, and the ground expanding with a fearful terror before you. And then the briefest sensation of a painless impact, stunned to a heavy implosion of darkness. Anthony had done it. Only this week, on Monday. He was off work that week. He was depressed, caught in a darkness which had settled upon him, and now threatened his own existence. So he went for a walk. He had the vaguest idea of where he would go, but he had an unerring suspicion of the place at a certain level. He didn't know if he would return from that walk, but made no special preparations. Along the cliff path he went, above the old echoing quarry with its tall, sheer limestone walls, a place where voices live, the voices of the past. He heard them speaking to him, calling softly to his footfall on the pine-needle path at the edge of those great walls, and there he stopped and stood pinned to the propinquity of disaster, and nearness a footstep away. And time had held him there, even as the voices urged him on, faintly mocked him, taunted him with his cowardice. Indecision had stalled him upon a razor's edge. He stumbled, fell back, and walked away breathless. He'd seen the whole act of his destruction through in his mind. Every tingling sensation was installed there. Only the step itself was absent. And that is not all. Tuesday came. Anthony stood in the same frame, a different place, in the grip of horror and prostrate fear, as a train spun by on a morning platform, and he was staring at the cold, polished tracks of iron rail, wondering where they led to, wondering if he had the nerve to take the step that would separate his body from his soul and set his spirit free. To what? He would, in the briefest flicker of consciousness, have the answer, as he felt the wind from the train lean into him, and the sudden cries from the startled platform sound above, the driver's face in gaping horror looming, and a rush of quietness enveloping him, a huge darkness within him, expanding sudden, like the universe spinning out from an infinitely small point, growing vast and impossible. To what? Only the voices knew, because they know everything. Just days ago now, Wednesday evening, bringing himself nearer to that final act again, Anthony took a revolver from the safe and sat at the dining table, a box of shells before him, and looked at them in their cubicles, shining, virginal, attentive. 12 by 6, 72 possibilities where one will suffice. And slinging the hinged barrel of the gun open, he removed a single cartridge from the box, cold, a deadly beauty instilled in it, and addressing it to a random chamber, pressed it home. The satisfaction of its solitary final click announcing its arrival at its terminal purpose. Then he closed the barrel shut, locked it in precision, and drilled the ratchet of the barrel around so that it lost its orientation, awaited the dizzy fortune of his command. But he sat and watched the gun, now malevolent with danger and bristling with the equivocation of fortune, knowing the spite of chance. Time passed, and the decision worrying at his mind was not sufficient to bring his hand to reach for the gun. It lay there, gleaming, bristling with temptation, and then finally its persuasion was upon him. It coaxed a decision from him which brought his hand to it, indolent at first, then with sureness as he took the handle in his palm and closed his fingers upon it, scraped upon the table, surprised by this command, and Antony by the weight of its grim finality, its perfect acquiescence to his will. He swallowed, a mortal reminder of a sullen purpose. His hand, steady, gripped the stock, and his finger threaded the loop of the trigger guard, and closed upon the trigger, thrilled to its silent danger. Then smoothly, not in haste, nor by any hint of prevarication, he brought the gun fearful to his temple, awkward, and gripped it tight, the cold of the nozzle pressed firmly to his head. And at this impasse he wondered if he could pull the trigger and leave the matter to the caprice of fate. And then he closed his eyes and felt the pressure of his finger subtle upon the trigger as it yielded to him to a final pressure point, and then beyond and to the point of an irremediable conclusion. A sudden skip of his heart, a stopped breath, and the trigger passed the point of all return, and Antony felt the chamber turn, the hammer release, splitting a hair 1,000 times, and a sharp metallic rap was heard. Of nothing. The chamber was empty. The bullet gloated, still potent in another chamber. Fortune had given its reprieve, frustrated his purpose. Perhaps it demanded some greater decision on his part, resented his cowardice to leave it to such chance, to fate. It would not be complicit in his fearful timidity. Fortune acts upon its own design, is no man's servile accomplice. Antony lowered the gun, and with a hand now shaking and a shallow quivering breath, resigned it to the table, bowed his head, defeated, and steadied his nerve again. The voices in the room receded. He still existed, on a whim, no more. For how long? He didn't know. This had been how Antony had spent the past few days, the days of his week's leave, in contemplation of his own destruction. Thursday he did nothing at all, merely thought of painless poison and a dream that would last forever. What should he do? What had he left now, sitting here contemplating the ruins of his world and the means of its destruction? A few moments' terror was all that was required to end the slow, insidious monotony that has him caught in its unremitting cycle. But the week had passed, and still he lived. He can soar above these cares, does so each day of his life, which gives him no relief from those below. He can pretend to those about him all is well, dismiss the raging horrors within upon a smile and a wave. He does this, but the voices within remain. They clamour to be heard. They follow him from the quarry, from the train, or at his elbow an insistent wave invisible he tunes to. "Good morning," a man says, who meets him upon his way, a brightness in his being which Antony takes up, as if he believes him, is credulous of the artifice of such habits. It is a good morning. Antony lies. He considers. Perhaps they both lie, one of those social conveniences or half-truths that reassure us that the world is ordered unto some plan made. It isn't. The voices hiss at him, jangle in confusion. Don't listen to those without, whose lies are nurtured by the tedious artifice of life. And so his week of leave came to an end. Anthony walked in the drizzle from his car. He had no umbrella. He needed none. His week off had been spent in failure, a failure to act, the devils about him luring him, the sirens sullen in their silence. The voices now are brooding, disappointed. But Anthony had come to a decision, as much of a decision as a man of his drifting inconsequence can make. He walked from the car park towards the main building. A man he knew walked by, brass buttons on his tunic, peaked cap and polished shoes, and they exchanged smiles, though he'd no idea, this other man, of the desperation Anthony had sewn up fast into a tight knot within. "Hello there, where have you been?" he asked. "Nowhere," said Anthony. "I had a week off." "Lucky you," said the man. "Did you do anything?" No, Anthony did nothing. He merely thought of it. It didn't qualify. He had not brought himself to the fright of action. He had not this kind of strength. Not yet. It is a vanity, preserves him, nothing else, not fear. No, not fear, and that inability to act. "Nothing much," he said at last, then added, "Relaxed." Ah, there's another lie he's still capable of. Perhaps he's normal after all. "And you?" he inquires. Again a lie of convention, the pretence that what this man has done, the places he has been or thinks of going, can possibly matter in the spinning universe out there. "Oh, busy all week," said the man. "Out east all week, actually. 12 hours and overnight, chasing horizons across the Earth's curve." He laughed. "I'm due some time off soon. Can't come soon enough for Janet and I." They both laughed, as if they shared some rational disdain for this amusing world of clouds and blue sky. But they do not. Anthony is not like him at all. He is not like others. The voices are his alone. They speak only to him, and yet Anthony is no one, and his past does not matter. He may be tomorrow's news. That is the full extent of his importance. That is the truth of his direction, of his destination. "Well, best be going," says the man. He goes. "So long," says Anthony. So long. He stands a moment rooted to the tarmac path, and then walks on. Am I insane? He is bound to ask the question of himself from time to time. They will say it, of course, and yet he knows nothing of its meaning. They would say he hears the voices. Yes, they will say that. And so? That his inner ear is more acute than theirs? They are merely deaf? It is hardly a cause for celebration, nor a proof of sanity. What is insanity? An understanding of the universe, far above the consequence of those below, the dots upon the ground, tracing patterns in the world. The realization that he is not insane, but rather has such an all-encompassing sanity, and of such keenness that only he may know it, satisfies him for now. He is, after all, merely unwilling to acknowledge the deceit of living, to be fooled by the illusions which have daily affronted him all his conscious life. I am in fact Icarus, Antony thinks, by profession so. The voices of the angels now affirm it. He has flown too close to the sun, and the feathers loosen in their wax foundation. I shall tumble loose like ribbons through the sky, a certain freedom, and fly no more, he thinks. You are Icarus, say the voices, waking from their slumber, a fresh speculation now amongst them, squabbling for his approval. Fly nearer to the sun. You can do it. Oh yes, I can do it, Antony thinks. The canteen is busy this morning. It is Monday. People are catching up on their weekends. The room is a chatter. Voices without purpose. Antony is drinking the strongest coffee he can muster from a small cup. It is bitter, acrid to his taste. He can taste the grounds of coffee, knows their habitat, the journey they have made. His long duty ahead shrinks upon him, violates his consequence, and inconsequential he sets his cup aside with decision, and from the canteen goes, setting his hat upon his head. He passes the waiting queues and turnstiles, smart, official, a bright outward courtesy about him. He has only one purpose left. How the matters learned through the years make the routines pass unnoticed, like dips and shallows in consciousness, to bring us to the present, and how those moments that preceded these are no longer accessible to consciousness. And yet we have a faith in them, because they are worn into our memory like a painful groove. They play the same persuasive tune. Only the hum is present now, a high whistle somewhere, a prediction of oblivion. And now to business, to do what must be done. Here goes then. It is time. Antony settles himself into his seat, flicks the switch on the dashboard, and glances at the first officer as he leans forward and speaks into the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We are currently flying southwest over the Pyrenees at an altitude of 33,000 feet. Please sit back and enjoy the remainder of your flight.